Pastor Dark, Saturday morning, just before 11 o'clock, we're at the funeral service. Walk me through what happens leading up to this situation.
So my wife was actually singing a song. At that point, one of the funeral directors came out because there were a crowd of people kind of like just standing in the floor, by the casket, blocking the casket. So he comes out, he says, "Hey, Pastor, we got to get everybody to sit down for safety reasons." I say, "I got you." My wife finishes the song, she passes me the microphone, and I make an announcement. So I say, "Hey, family, I need everybody to find a seat. As people are coming in, we want to be able to view the body, and then we need everybody to find a seat. We need the floor to stay clear for safety reasons." At that moment, a gentleman who was in the midst of the crowd proceeded to yell and scream obscenities toward me, basically just saying he ain't moving. And so, and I was cool with that. My initial intent, though, was to get a chair and move a chair up to the casket and just let him sit in the chair because it seemed like this was like a really big deal for him. But in the exchange, he was yelling and he started saying that, using language that I prefer not to use, that "you're not gonna make me move." And then he reached into his pants and put out a gun. He pulled the gun out, and he extended the gun. And I will say this, I don't want to say in defense of him, but even as he pointed the gun, I don't believe he was trying to point it. I think it was more so was his emotions, and he was talking with the gun in his hand. But it was still the fact that the gun was pointed. At that moment, the crowd went into this, erupted into chaos, and I proceeded over the microphone. I initially started praying openly. I'm church. Prayer changes a lot of things, and so I began to pray. And after that, when I saw that the room wasn't coming down, I then spoke into the mic and I just said, "Hey, can somebody get my kids and my wife out of here? Just make sure my family makes it out." I am now instructing the people like, "Hey, everybody calm down. We don't have to do this. Let's just exit the room." I then say to the young man, like, "Man, you don't need that." Like I say, you don't need this. It's okay. So I say to the room openly over the mic and I let them know that, hey, so I'm a therapist, y'all. And I was like, "He's angry, he's grieving." I was like, "It's okay. Let me just talk to him." He proceeds to go stand at the casket. I go stand next to him at the casket. And I try to engage him again at this point. And I say, "Hey, I know you're feeling a lot." And he looks down at me, uses some swear words, and tells me, "I don't believe in the God that you believe in, and I will put hands on you." I said, "Okay," and I walked away. At that point, I proceeded helping people, leave the room, and that was kind of it. I am a big advocate for mental health, and I understand that as men of color, we don't always have a lot of safe spaces in order to express ourselves. Somebody made a comment to me and said, "Why did you try to continue to talk to him?" And my statement was, I remember when I was the young, angry man. I remember what it was like to feel like nobody heard me. And so one of my things is I believe that my job as a therapist is to stand in the dark with people until they are ready to move through the darkness. And that's what my goal was. It wasn't trying to be important as a believer, as a pastor, as a clinician. I was really just trying to make sure that this young man understood this is safe. You don't have to go out this way. So.
Yeah.